Hello everyone, welcome to the Dev Method. I'm Ricky. Today we're going to be talking about closures. Let's just get right into it. So closures. Let's just review a function real quick. So we're going to say load image, and it's going to take a name. So there it is, load image. If I want to use it, I say load image, give it some sort of string value like so, and we could just pretend that it loads an image. Now here's the thing. Let's say it returns a UI image, right? So we have this syntax here with the dash and then a greater than, so it looks like a little arrow saying when you give a name, variable name, or a string, you're going to then return an image. So we do something like this. And system name, like so. There we go, all done. Now, so here's the thing. Let's just say the image wasn't actually on the computer yet. It was somewhere else, and you had to download it. So it comes from an endpoint. Well, we can't return image right away then. We have to have some sort of like callback. So let's just say on success. Okay, and then what goes here? We're going to put a callback. So what does that look like? Let's do a type alias, call it callback. And the type, very similar to load image. It's got this here. And we'll just say UI image, right? It's a callback that returns a UI image. Not totally what we exactly want, but it's kind of the same thing. So I'll just say get image from HTTP endpoint, like so. So it actually has no return because we can't wait around for it. But yeah, we could say that, okay, the image loaded successfully. We're all done. Now here, let's take a look at another way to do this. Let's just say on failure, it's another one. So we'll just say it's like an error callback. Okay, what does that one look like? Type alias, error callback. Well, we want to pass in the error so that you could use it. So we put in here a type, error. We don't have to remember what it's called or what it's doing, but essentially what it looks like, so you do load image, you get all the way here to the error, you're going to get that error right here. More on this syntax in a second. But that's the concept. We have return types that we have to annotate. We have parameters. You could even have a function that returns another function, like so. It could be chained together. That's kind of cool. So let's get back to this though. How could we use this if it was in line? Well, then this would go right here. Take that, give that, put that away, give this here, and like so. Let me separate them on separate lines so you can see. There you go, one after another. That's how that looks. So pretty simple to actually put them in as parameters, right? So now let's say we load the image. How do we use this? Well, we got Ricky here, then we got the on success, and then we got the failure. So there's a lot of different ways to actually use this, so we're gonna walk through them one by one. Here's the first one, to pass in an anonymous closure. There we go. There it is. So I would say then here, print success happened, right? So that makes sense. Nothing passed in, so this is it. This is the bare minimum of what we need to satisfy that type. Next type though, however, little different. We're going to need some sort of parameter here. So maybe error in, like so. Sometimes you see it like this, sometimes like this. It's kind of up to you. But then you could say like print error happened here, and then put error in there. So this is kind of like the most basic way of using your anonymous closures that you're creating. So you're actually creating kind of like this like pseudo object. And you're just saying, well, when given this failure case of loading an image, you are going to at least be expected to receive some sort of error because you know an error occurred, and then they're going to do whatever you want with that. That's your job. They're going to at least call this as like a function. It's like kind of like a higher order function. You're just passing it in. You can do something in the implementation with the parameters. You might also sometimes be expected to return a type, but regardless, this is like the simplest way. If we want to expand on it, the most that we could, this is what these two would look like. And then in here. So what we're saying here on this line, on line 14, is that it's the same type as what was declared here for the parameter type. And then everything after in is your implementation. Same thing here. We have an error. We get to name it. It could be like, I don't know, could name it Ricky or something. And then that is the parameter that's passed in. See, it doesn't have a specific name here, so you get give it whatever name you want. Although if you really wanted like more context to this, I don't know, maybe not error, you could say like HTTP error, something like that. If you really want like the user who's using this API to know that there's a little bit more to it than just being a plain old error, not because the type is any different, but you just kind of want to let them know. You might have multiple errors you pass back. I don't know your programs, you might do that yourself, but that's the whole idea. Yeah, so I'm going to name it whatever I want, and this is like the full layout of the full syntax of what we could call this. So now that we are here, let's just say we want to like dial it back a little bit. Like, what's the next thing we can do? Well, we definitely don't need this because there is no parameter to be declared, and then we're done. It doesn't return anything, so don't need to return. Could do a return like this. That would work. It would stop any execution. Nothing else can happen afterwards. But let's take a look at the next one. It's a little bit more complicated. So first thing we could do is we can actually take away this part, the return type, because that can be inferred. Now the next part is this error is already inferred as well. So we don't need this, so we don't need the colon, but we got it given in a name. So that's great. You can also take out the parentheses, so that's cool. And then this all still works. Now the next step, a little bit more fancy, is you take this out, and then how do you use that first parameter? You would use $0. That's how you get that first parameter. After that point, now you got load image, got that parameter figured out. Let's just say there was like a second error that you wanted to use. You could do $1. So it's indexed by 0, going up 1, 2, and so on. So that is the idea of using those. So let's take it one step even further. Let me get rid of this. Back to the original, what we have. We're going to use an example here where we start over. So say load an image, give it a name, right? Put these on multiple lines here. So watch what happens if you use Xcode's autocorrect. I just highlight that parameter there and press enter. Well, there it fills it in for you. Great. Okay, so we could say, code here. Next one, let it fill it in. Well, it already puts in this weird syntax here. It almost looks like an implementation after the usage of the already declared load image. So what it's saying is basically you just have what's called the trailing closure. You could do whatever it is that you'd normally do in your closure. It just doesn't have a name to it. This is known as the trailing closure. One common way to see this, I'll show you UI view with animation. Give it a duration. Let's do 0.3, and then watch this, press enter. There it is. So it might look a little bit nicer to use in this way. One thing on the trailing closures, just want to show you real quick. Now this is currently in beta, but available in Swift 5.3, is that there's actually another way to use trailing closures. So let's just take the same syntax that we had before. So we have load image, on success, and on failure. This is a new trailing syntax closure here. See this? Doesn't have that last parenthesis, puts it here, so it's multiple trailing closures. So you don't have to memorize that, but it's just maybe some fun knowledge to know. All right, so back to the other project here. I want to at least show you one more thing we have to keep in mind. So let's just say this is not a global function, but most of the time you'll be writing these things in maybe a class. We'll just call the class loader, okay? And we'll move this stuff over. Now let's just say in the loader where you load an image or does something, we have a onSuccess here that we need to hold the pointer to. So we have some sort of variable here. I'm just going to give it the default empty anonymous closure function, whatever you want to call it, right here. Let's just say the implementation here, though, has to set onSelf like so to onSuccess. So watch what's going to happen. The compiler is going to help you out. It's actually going to tell you something about a non-escaping parameter. So let's table that for a second. What you're not seeing is that there is an annotation added in by the compiler that would look something like this, so non-escaping. But there is no annotation for that. You can't even put the dash in there, right? So that doesn't work either. This is just automatically non-escaping. But since the compiler is smart enough to detect when you're using self and assigning that parameter to something of self, then we put it on here as an instance variable. So now it needs to actually be not only captured in memory, but then there's an owner of the memory. So that would be loader, the class owns onSuccess. In loader, the dinit, it has the job of then releasing onSuccess. So going back to this, how do we fix this? Well, we just put @escaping here, and that would fix that. Let me show you this whole error here. It actually gives you a way to fix this, and it helps you. So assigning a non-escaping parameter onSuccess to an escaping closure. So notice there's no escaping up here. We could put that if we wanted to. I guess you could, whatever you want, but not necessary. It already knows that it's escaping because it's an instance variable. You're going to hold on to it for some sort of life cycle. So we just put it right here, @escaping. And since this is an error case, we would also probably want it for something like this too. So usually you're not going to see the implementation unless you want to write an implementation for that. But this is the idea. Both of these are going to be escaping somehow. And whether it's in this class or an instance variable in another class, yeah, you're going to need that. That's definitely going to happen. So let's just say we had this, x is a loader, and x.loadImage, got this image name with the onSuccess, with the error, like so. Great. Now, if you had other values that you wanted to then, let's say here, I got a Ricky that is, I don't know, it's a UI image. There we go. Just got a plain old UI image, and I assigned it to this thing called Ricky. So if you want image to go in here, well, sometimes you have to actually capture that image. So this is what would happen now if I wanted to use image in here and print it out. Like so, right? That works. But if it was somewhere in here, right? So let's say we said, I don't know, somehow, let's do another method, say load success. Okay. And let's just say S for success, void, yeah, that's fine. All right, so now let's just say in load image, we want to use this other function here, or it could be another class. It doesn't have to be the one we're currently in. We could then say self.loadSuccess. Okay, we get that trailing closure syntax right here, pretty cool. But then let's say we wanted to use onSuccess from here, or maybe even from here. So if it was the onSuccess from here, so let's say onSelfSuccess, we would have to do something like, well, it'd be like this, self.onSuccess, and I don't know, call it or something, do something. But that whole point being, you need self. Watch what happens if we remove it. Yeah. So you actually, we can use this? Great, cool. Probably because it already has implicitly self-captured. So let me break this out. Call it class, other, put that in here. And let's just say this was other dot load success. So what we're actually going to get here is, do we get an error? Oh, we don't. Okay, great. All right, well, we're on to the newer version of Swift, it looks like. So you could just do self, because this is a closure. Oh, but you know what? I know why it doesn't work, because this is, right now, non-escaping. So escaping, like so. All right, so you're going to get something like this. Now look, it says reference to property on self success, okay? Closure requires self to make capture semantics explicit, meaning we didn't have self here. We didn't tell this closure that we're taking in self. So now we have self here, right? That's saying self was never used. Yeah, so it's kind of weird. This is a weird way to write this. You probably wouldn't do this. This is implied. Self is captured. Now, usually this is some sort of view controller. And now the view controller you don't want sticking around in memory. So typically what you've probably seen on tutorials and whatnot is to use weak self. So here's the reason why. You're going to have to put a question mark after that to actually have it work correctly. But it's because you don't want loader to go off screen because it's a view controller, and then other still has a pointer to it, and then other stuff breaks because self is not actually there, and you don't need to be doing any of this. So this would just check to see if it's there. If it's not, it will not call on self success, but if it is, it'll call on success, and maybe on self success does something else. Okay, so either way, yeah, if on success was called here, it is actually great that this is now marked as escaping, because it truly is escaping this as well. So like, let's just take this part out, right? We're not assigning it anymore. And let's run this. So it's actually going to tell you here again, see a non-escaping with escaping. What are you doing? So you have to put the escaping right in here. All right, guys, I hope that's enough for you guys to understand closures and how to use them, but then also a little bit about like memory management. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.